Pointing, this amazing and a opportunity that really doesn't get to happen so often. Two reasons why we get the rum ambassador for the category of rum with Ian. I mean, I've met him once, great guy, and he's doing this live for us on, well, hopefully Facebook if we get that going, and obviously Zoom. This is such a treat. He's doing it for something that we just launched in the Philippines with Dos Maderas rum, the 5+5. I'm sure a lot of you guys have samples. We're going to go after it. We're going to taste it. If you haven't bought it yet, you could buy it, of course, from liquor.ph. And we will actually have a special for those watching tonight. We will flash the promo later. So there's even more of a promo on top of what's going on right now. So, but we'll talk about to the end. And we'll also have a quiz where we'll be giving away a couple bottles. And when Ian leaves, because he has things to do, right afterwards, we will be starting our Inuman, our virtual drinking session where we hang out. And during the quiz there, we're also going to give away another bottle. So that's 3 potential bottles to give away tonight for you guys to win. Luckily, I'm not participating in the quiz, or Leonard, so I think that's 2 easy bottles right there. So no worries about that, guys. Anyways, Ian.
Yes.
Wow. If you could go ahead and, take over, please introduce anyone here that doesn't know who you are, because there's so much about you. I mean, only you could really tell who you are.
Okay, cool. Well, guys, thank you again for joining us this evening to have a taste of rum, share a little bit of knowledge, and to meet old and new friends as well. So it's we're in a crazy time at the moment. So when we do things like this and get together, it's almost like we're trying to get back to or trying to create a new norm. So thank you again for actually giving up the time, your time, to listen to me and to hang out with the Liquor PH guys as well. So thanks again to Frank and Leo for putting this on. So my name is Ian Burrell, and I'm the global ambassador for rum. And all that means is get to travel around the world. Not as much at the moment, but a little bit here in Europe. Get to travel around the world, talk with fellow professionals, rum lovers, fellow ambassadors, work with different rum brands, and get paid for doing it. So it's the dream job for me. I first drank rum when I was about 4 days old, according to my grandmother and my mum. A little bit of rum on my lips to put me to sleep or help me to sleep. So rum is in my blood. And it's because of that, when I started bartending in bars, rums were always the products I wanted to use for my cocktails out there. And even today, when I'm working in bars and doing guest shifts, if there's no rum on the bar, then you're not going to get me on that bar as such. Definitely not vodka. Yeah, bit of a vodka assassin. So rum is in my blood as a Caribbean. But the great thing about rum and what I do around the world is that rum is made and drunk everywhere. You guys in the Philippines, I was very fortunate to go to the Philippines once, come to the Philippines, hang out with Frank before for another rum brand that I was working with. But I'd always wanted to come to the Philippines because when I did my talks around the world, of course, when you're talking about the size of rum and its global lure, you have to mention Tanduay, second biggest, if not the first biggest selling rum in the world. And what it showed people in Europe and showed people in America, it showed them that rum is an international spirit, drunk and made all over the world. So very, very privileged to actually come to the Philippines, to Manila. Can't wait to get back and see you guys in person and have a drink. And speaking of drink, we're going to talk about one of my favorite rum brands, and that's Dos Maderas. I'm one of those people that love, even though I focus on rums, I do drink a lot of other alcoholic beverages, beer, champagne if it's free, but I love sherry as well. So when I had the chance to travel to Jerez, sherry to see these guys, to see how they make their brand. I was like a little kid in the candy store, because I had sherry one side, I had rum the other side. It was like fused together. It was a cocktail in a bottle. So I was like, wow, this is definitely going to be a brand for me to not only introduce people to styles of rums, new styles of rums, but also introduce a new audience into what I like to call after dinner rums, which is what Dos Maderas falls into. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how Dos Maderas has been put together, where it's from, and hopefully answer any questions. There is a question button, or I think there is a question button or chat. Maybe you can put inside the chat. I'm sure Frank and Leo will be able to get back to you with those, and maybe learn a little bit about me, why I'm crazy enough to do things like create the world's first rum festival, international rum festival in 2007, which is what I did. Even was crazy enough to take a tiki bar to Antarctica. Can't be a global ambassador for rum if you don't do all 7 continents. So yes, I took one down towards Antarctica in the snow. And as a Jamaican, you probably know Jamaicans don't like snow unless we're in bobsleighs. So it was definitely original to take a tiki bar down to Antarctica, make some cocktails down there at research stations and for some of the other guests. But anyway, let's talk about Dos Maderas rum, because that's the new rum. The new packaging as well. It's been brought in by what's called by liquor.ph. So yeah, let's talk about it. We've got a little presentation with some pictures and slides, because I know some people like to see imagery while I'm talking as well. I think you can download the slides. I did see a link. I think Frank and Leo put the slides up there. So yeah, brilliant. Let's see if we can see the slides and kick off.
Yep. Sharing them now.
Okay.
And starting the presentation.
Nice. Okay, right. So as I don't have a clicker that works all the way from here to Manila, I'll ask Leo to click away. I'll probably just say click. That might work. So click. Okay, right. So if you do want to follow me, you can. I've got all the social medias: the rum_ambassador on Twitter, the Rum Ambassador on Instagram, and then Ian Burrell on Facebook. Click. So when we say one spirit, 2 cultures, it's almost like 2 elements rolled into one, and there are very few rums out on the market that encompass 2 cultures in a bottle. Most rums around the world are from one island or one area, but to have 2 cultures influence a particular brand is fairly unique, or very rare at least. So Dos Maderas, and I'm sure some of you speak Spanish out there. I'm only just learning Spanish, so Dos Maderas, meaning 2 woods, is one of those brands that actually do that. So it's made in a distinctive style where it captures the heart of Caribbean rums, but also the beauty and the history and the nuances of Jerez sherry, that Spanish style. Click. I'm a little bit of a fanboy when it comes to master blenders and distillers and the people that actually make the rums. This is the master blender for Dos Maderas. Her name is Paula Medina. When I first met her, her English wasn't that great. It's a lot better than my Spanish. So we were communicating with sign languages and drinking rum, but she does like to drink, and she's also a chemical engineer, but she's in charge of not only making the blends for Dos Maderas, but she also looks after the sherries and some of the brandies that are there as well. Click. So Dos Maderas is made by a company called William and Humbert. William and Humbert, for years, they have like 140 years of experience of making sherry. So they're not rum makers, but they're spirit makers, drink makers, wine makers. They create experiences. And one of the experiences they've realized in the last, say 10 years is that rum is the fastest growing premium category in the world. And it was something they felt they could actually explore, because a lot of their drinkers, a lot of their audience were drinking premium sherries. And there's a lot of similarities between premium sherries and premium rums, the way they age, full-bodied, sweet aromas and tastes, where you're taking from the raw spirit and the wood. So it was a match made in heaven for these two companies, for these two styles to get together. Click. So let's talk about rum and its journey. Yeah, because although rum is drunk all over the world, the epicenter of the rum world, it has to be the Caribbean. I'm saying that as a Jamaican. Definitely has to be the Caribbean as such. And one of the reasons why is because that's where the word rum was given to the cane spirit. Now, it's not saying that cane spirit wasn't made in other countries or other areas before the Caribbean, but those cane spirits were never called rum. Rum actually got its name in or on the island of Barbados in the 1650s. So the Europeans can be credited for creating rum as it is. Click. So we talk about 3 areas. When we talk about Dos Maderas, we talk about Guyana, we talk about Barbados, and we talk about Spain, España, because that's the elements that make up these two cultures, the culture of the Caribbean, the culture of Europe. Click. So why bring rum from the Caribbean to Europe? Well, historically, this is what happened. All of the English, when they colonized, the English and the Spanish and the Portuguese, anyone from Europe that went to colonize the Caribbean, they basically made all their rum there and then brought them back home to Europe because they couldn't make rum in Europe. You need sugarcane, you need tropical weather, you need rain. There's a lot of rain in Europe, but no tropical weather to grow the sugarcane. So all of that rum was made in the Caribbean and brought back to Europe, but it wasn't aged. They were put in barrels, they were put in vessels to bring from the Caribbean to Europe. And once it got there, they realized, wow, the taste of these spirits tastes a little better than they did when they were actually in the Caribbean because they had integrated with the wood over those weeks inside a barrel on those ships. Even by the 18th century in Europe, rum was so popular. Take England, for example. England was always known as gin drinkers in the 17th century and early 18th century. By the mid 18th century, rum took over gin as the most popular or the spirit of choice, especially if you're bringing it in from places like Jamaica, Barbados, and Guyana. So rum was one of the most popular spirits even back then, before time changed its popularity. But click. So one of the other reasons why you'd bring rum from the Caribbean and not just make rum in Europe is because of a beautiful terminology that we use in spirit aging called the angel's share. Now, if anyone's listened to someone talking about whiskey, especially Scotch, if anyone's ever been to another great little distillery in Taiwan called Kabalan, if anyone's seen, I don't know if there's any whiskey distilleries is there any whiskey distilleries in Philippines, Frank? I'm not sure.
No, there's not.
No, oh, well, you should do. You got the weather. You got the weather for it. Get that tropical aging. The angel share is what they call the share of spirits that evaporates inside a barrel when the barrel is warm. So imagine a barrel of spirit in warm climates. As that liquid expands because of the heat, it's sucked up into the pores, the skin of the wood, and then some of that is floated up into the air through evaporation, and it's called the angel share. Now, this is important because it develops the characteristics of the spirit, whether it's whiskey, whether it's rum, whether it's brandy, tequila as well. So anything that gets natural color from the wood takes advantage of the angel share of the liquid evaporating through the skin of the barrels to the sky, to the angels, as they say. This is a good thing and a bad thing because all that alcohol that's evaporating, you normally have to pay tax on that. You don't get to drink it. It goes to the angels for free. So next slide, flip. In the Caribbean, especially in places like Jamaica, we don't call them angels, we call them duppies. We call it the duppy share. Now the duppy is a bad angel or a ghost, and the Caribbeans are very scared of ghosts, very scared of ghosts. So much so that when you build a new house or you buy a house, you always pour rum on the floor of your house to get rid of any ghosts or bad vibes. And that's tradition in the Caribbean. So the rum that evaporates from the barrels inside the hot tropical climate of the Caribbean, we call that the duppy share. But again, it's important to create the characteristics of Caribbean rum. Next slide. So let's explain this in more detail. So in Scotland, you have whiskey, your Scotch whiskey. Now, Scotland's not very hot. It's a very cold country, very cold. In fact, a hot day in Scotland is about 12 degrees. No, joking. It's a little bit warmer than that. But on average, it's not a hot country, which is good for their Scotch whiskey because it takes their whiskey ages for a long, long time, and they're not losing a lot of liquid through evaporation. In fact, because of the cool temperatures, the humidity, which is quite high, they're losing 2 to 3% of their whiskey in a barrel every year. So if you got for example, you got 100 liters inside a barrel, after a year, there'll be about 97 liters in there. You'd have lost 3% just through evaporation to the angel's share. But you're getting all that color and flavor from the barrels of the wood to make the whiskey, the 97% that's left, taste beautiful. Next slide. In Kentucky, say America, another whiskey, a popular whiskey out there, bourbon, they will lose 2 to 5% every year through their whiskey. And that's because they have very cold winters, but very hot summers. So on average, about 2 to 5%, depending on which distillery we're talking with. But also, it's quite a dry climate there. So they're losing a lot of water as well. And by losing water in the barrels, the alcohol gets stronger in the barrel, where in Scotland, they're losing more alcohol and it gets weaker. So in Scotland, Scotch whiskey gets weaker in the barrel. In Kentucky, the bourbon gets stronger in the cask. Next slide. In cognac, similar to Scotland, quite cool climate. They're losing about 2 to 3% of their whiskey every year. Next slide. And in the Caribbean, it could range from 6 to 10%, depending on where you are in the Caribbean. Imagine 10% of your alcohol is being evaporated in those barrels every year to basically become Caribbean rum. Now, again, this could be a bad thing because you've lost 10% of your product, but it's also a good thing because it means you get to that sweet spot where that liquid is beautiful and tasty and balanced. You get to it a lot quicker. So we like to say that in the Caribbean, we have tropical aging because we're losing 2 to 3% more alcohol than, say, a Scotch whiskey does. So a Scotch whiskey aged for, let's say, a Jamaican rum aged for, let's say, 5 years, yeah, to get to that same level of flavor in Scotland, you'd have to age your whiskey for 15 years. Yeah, so it's 3 times faster just to get to that sweet spot. That doesn't mean a 5-year-old rum is better than a 15-year-old whiskey, but it just means basically to get to that sweet spot, the same chemical reactions, it's just a shorter space of time. So when you look at age statements on some Caribbean rums, if they've been aged entirely in the Caribbean, that's a lot of maturity. Even if it's a younger rum in age, like a 5-year-old, that's like a 15-year-old Scotch whiskey in maturity. Next slide. If we talk about Jerez, now Jerez, they have a similar type of age and loss of alcohol throughout the year, because where they are in Spain, they take advantage of that hot Spanish summer, but they also have the Atlantic cool breeze cooling it down. So it can range, but we always say up to 7% a year, because some years it may be 2%, other years it may be 7%. So we say up to 7% in Jerez, where they're aging not only their rums, they're aging their brandies, they're aging their sherries as well. And as you can see here, that is one of the aging facilities that they have at William and Humbert in Jerez. I have to say though, that aging facility there is about the size of a football pitch, yeah, and they have 12. So imagine 12 football pitches of aging spirits. That's how big William and Humbert are. Massive. Next slide. So let's talk about the rum. The rum. So there's 2 places where the rum comes from. The first place is Guyana. Guyana is in South America, as we can see here in the slide at the top there, right next to Dutch Guyana, also next to, where else is next to? Borders with Brazil as well, and Venezuela, very close to Venezuela. It's one of the most fertile, rich countries in the world because of the tropical rainforest, part of the Amazons there. They have waterfalls, they have the Demerara sugar, rich soil. It's beautiful, very lush and green. If you can't grow anything in Guyana, then you're in the wrong place. It's absolutely amazing. Next slide. A little close up there, as you see, Venezuela, Brazil, Suriname, which is Dutch Guyana, surrounded, was an important part of the old English colonies because of the fact it was, a gateway into South America, and it was easy to get to the rest of the Caribbean, Jamaica, Barbados, and Trinidad, which Trinidad is not that far away from there. But again, when we're talking about rum, we're talking about raw material. Lots of sugar cane being grown there. The sugar cane is squeezed and turned into molasses, which again is used for the local rums. And with rum purists and enthusiasts, Chinese rums are seen as some of the best in the world. Some of the biggest brands out there are rums like El Dorado, and you also have independent bottlers like Velier that are bottling some great Guyanese rums. Next slide. The other great thing about Guyana at the distillery is they have a still. These are the equipment they use to make rum. They have a still for every occasion. They have about 9 different stills, but they also have the world's only wooden pot stills. They have 2 wooden pot stills, and they use those to make some really original, flavorsome, heavy, sweet tasting rums. And that's so important when you're creating blends, to have beautiful tasting rums, like from the Demerara distillers in Guyana. Next slide. These are some of my holiday snaps, just me posing with some of these stills. Next slide. These are the actual wooden stills themselves. You can have a little close up. Someone might say, oh, but they're made from wood. Don't they burn when you're making the rum? No, because they have metal coils inside there. So all the heat that is exchanged inside the vat come from that metal coil, which actually is in touch with what we call the wash, which is the molasses, water, and sugar to distill to create the rums. But yeah, absolutely amazing. They're over 250 years old. Next slide. They also use French column stills called Saval stills as well. So some of these rums are lighter, not only heavy, but again, you could make some great tasting rums. Next slide. These are the French Saval stills. Next slides there. These are just like holiday snaps. I love showing holiday snaps in presentations if you've never been to the distillery. Next slide. And then we also have, again, a masterpiece, which is a wooden coffee still. It's called a coffee still after a man named Enos Coffey, who invented this type of still in around 1824. It was a way to make alcohol lighter than the pot still, but it was also a way to make alcohol continuously, not having to stop and start, which is what you have to do in a pot still or in a batch distillation. But Guyana have wooden column stills, again, unique. They only use them like 6 months of the year, but it creates a unique rum and an important part of the base of Dos Maderas. Next slide. And the other rum that they use is from Barbados. Yeah. Barbados is the island where rum got its name. Next slide. It's also making some of the best rums in the world at the moment. There's a distillery called Foursquare that's winning all the awards around there. And they seem to make not only some of the best rums in the world, but some of the best liquid. And again, fortunately, Dos Maderas uses Foursquare rums inside their blend. So they buy that via their broker in Amsterdam. And it makes it extra special when you have a quality rum like Foursquare, as well as quality rums from Guyana as the base of your blend. Next rum. Oh, next slide, sorry. This is some of the estate. Next slide. Barbados, sugarcane growing there. A lot of sugarcane had been brought into Barbados because they can't make enough. There's not enough sugarcane growing on the island for all the rums, because, as I said, rum is becoming more popular, but they're starting to grow more sugarcane on the island now, and hopefully soon they'll be making some estate rums. The difference between Barbados and Guyana, when we're talking about the base rums, is Barbados's rums are modern pot stills made from 100% copper, double retort, heavy, flavorsome. But what they do is, next slide, they blend that with column stills. So Barbados rums are blends of pot and column still, where Guyanese rums can be column still, they can be pot still, or they can be blends of both. So slightly different, different flavor profiles. The Barbados rum is more drier on the finish, not as sweet initial tasting as the Guyanese rum, but again, 2 beautiful, beautiful spirits. And again, if you're going to make your own blend of rum, why not have 2 great rums to start off with, to actually make your brand even better, especially if you don't own your own distillery. Next slide. So these are some of the barrels aging at Foursquare. Next slide. In total, they have about 40,000 barrels of rum aging. So Dos Maderas doesn't have to worry about running out of rum when they're actually looking to create their blends, because there's more and more coming on the way. As I said, as these rums become more popular, these rum makers are laying down casks for the future. They're making rum today that they're looking to sell in 8, 9, 10 years time. So big business, a lot of forecasts, a lot of sitting on cash when you're doing your own rum. Next slide. So the rum comes out the barrel, beautiful gold colors, natural gold. A lot of rums that are out there that you see on the markets, on the shelves. By looking at them, you can never ever tell how old they are. One, because you can have white rums that are unaged, and you can have white rums that have been aged. Because some companies will filter the gold color out of their white rums to sell as a white rum. And the only reason why they age is because the law in that country says they have to age rum for a particular length of time. Puerto Rico, you have to age all your rums for a minimum of 1 year. Venezuela, you have to age all your rums for a minimum of 2 years. So to sell a white rum, you need to filter the color out. So you can't just look at a rum and say it's that old. Also, you can have really dark rums that are very light initially, and someone's added some caramel to them just to make it look darker. Now, you can add caramel to a rum to make it look like the same color as it was when it came out of the barrel, or you can add caramel to rum just to make it look darker and then sell it as black rum or dark rum. So again, looking at the rum is nice to look at the beauty of it and the color, but it doesn't really tell you much about the age. That really comes with the tasting. Next slide. So, that's Dorley's bottle. Next slide. Still in Barbados. Right, let's get to Spain now, Jerez. So the rum is made in Barbados. It's come from Barbados. The other rum has come from Guyana, and they journey from the Caribbean to Jerez on the west coast of Spain, to a beautiful little town. Jerez, as you know, means sherry, or sherry means Jerez, but a beautiful little town that's known for all their sherries, lots of different sherry houses. So William & Humbert is one of the biggest ones there. And as I said, you go there and it's like you're going back in time. You're drinking some great sherries, and now, of course, they have some great rums. Oh, next slide. So just to for a little historical reference, again, you can see this on the slides and that type of thing. I just wanted to pull up things like 1877 is when they were established. So it shows they have a lot of history behind them, a lot of pedigree. They make some of the biggest selling sherries in the world, some of the most famous sherries inside the world, as such as lots of companies look for and seek. They also not only seek the sherries, they also seek the barrels that William & Humbert and Dos Maderas use to age their rum. So a lot of companies are fighting and pay a lot of money for these barrels. So we're very fortunate to have, well, they're very fortunate to have these barrels sitting there waiting to be used for their rums, because there are other companies looking to pay to use these barrels to age their rums. Just for reference, one of those big football pitches of barrels at William & Humbert is dedicated just for aging sherry, just to season the barrels to create sherry casks for companies like Macallan. So all Macallan's sherry casks are coming from William & Humbert. And it's just one football pitch of sherry casks just for whiskey, just for Scotch whiskey, just for sherry. They actually throw the sherry away because they only wanted just to season those barrels. So this is how big this company is, and this is how the quality of the barrels they're using. Next class. So here there is Paolo again, the master blender, working away. Gonzalo, if you're on, I don't know if Gonzalo's on, I thought I'd get a picture of you inside there trying to look like you're working, but it's not. He's really just drinking free sherry, because that's one of the best sherries in the world when it's free. Next slide. And this is how it works out there. So when we drink rum, there are many different styles of rums out there from different countries, different areas. But there's one technique that we've seen in quite recent times on some brands, and we see the word Solera on rums. Now, some people don't understand exactly what Solera means. Others hope that people don't understand, so they could take advantage of the aging techniques to, what I say, misinform slightly some consumers. Fortunately, which is one of the reasons why I work with these guys, Dos Maderas don't. They tell you exactly how it is. and you know exactly what you're buying when you see the product. So the way that Solera, the simple way of way that Solera aging works is you add rum. Let's say you add spirit to the top barrel, and every year or every couple of years you decanter some of that top barrel into the 2 barrels underneath, and you constantly every couple of years decanter some rums or some liquid from 1 barrel on top to the next barrel that is underneath. So on this slide here, you can see number 1, Criadera, number 2, Criadera, number 3, Criadera. So number 3, Criadera, oh yeah, you can pour. Don't, pour, get some Dos Maderas inside your glass. Don't wait for me. Criadera, the Criadera number 3, you then pour some rums into Criadera number 2. And then after a couple of years, you pour rums from the 2nd Criadera to the 1st Criadera. And then the last one is the Solera level. These are the barrels that are used to then bottle into the particular spirit. So what you're doing, you're educating younger spirits with older spirits. So you can put some young products in the top, and by the time it works its way down to the bottom, it's got older over the years of it marrying with some older spirits inside there, and of course taking some of the flavor from those barrels. Yeah, so that's how that works. It's a great way of making consistent spirits, but it's very hard to actually determine a year or an age for that product unless you talk about how long the product has been in your Solera system. That's the key, and that's important. No just said, so the top level is the youngest? Yes, correct. No, the youngest, the 3rd Criadera, that's the youngest product, and all the oldest products will be at the bottom. Yeah, next slide. And here's another slide that you can take a look at when you have a little bit more time, just to look through and show you how the marrying works over the course of time. Next slide. So as I said about these very, very old barrels, some of these rums have actually been in, or some of these products have actually been inside these barrels for nearly 60 years. And that gives consistency and flavors. As Mike said, yeah, dessert rum, 100%. You'd want to sip it after dinner with maybe some cheese and or something else to go with it. It is a really great experience at the end of the meal. Next slide. So this is one of the rums you don't actually have over here. We're very fortunate to have, sorry, Raj Kumar's up to 7%, Raj, Angel share in Jerez, up to. This is one rum we don't have over here, unfortunately, because I love this tasting rum, because again, I love sweet and dry sherries. This is the 5+3, and the reason why I talk about this one is just to show you where the 5+5, which is what you have, has come from. So the 5-year-old rums from Guyana and Barbados, now these are 5 Barbados and Guyanese age. Remember we talked about the tropical agents. 5 years rums from Guyana and Barbados have come to Jerez, come to Andalusia. And then it's blended in these award-winning sherry casks, actually a sherry called Dos Cortados, which is a 20-year-old guaranteed certified dry sherry. Beautiful flavors. As I said, it's a shame you haven't got that actual particular sherry inside in front of you, because it is one of my favorites. But the rum marries with the flavors of the sherry for 3 years. So it goes 3 years within that Solera system. So when they say 5+3, they basically mean 5 years is a minimum age rum that exactly goes inside the Solera system. And then after 3 years of being within that Solera system, of going from one barrel to another barrel, it's then ready to be bottled and sold as a 5+3. So simple mathematics, 8 years old. But they call it 5+3 because they also want to let you know exactly what the process is. Next slide. And this is a little picture of the Dos Cortados, aged 20 years sherry. It's a Cortado sherry, not a Oloroso, but it's absolutely amazing. But hopefully the guys from Liquor PH might get a couple bottles of that for a live tasting. You can get to taste with the DNA, part of the DNA of the 5+5 and the 5+3 if they decide to bring it in. Next slide. So imagine now you've got that 5+3, which is here, and then you say, "Oh, you know what? Let's give it another 2 more years." Next slide. So you give it another 2 more years, but this time you put it into Ex-Pedro Jimenez barrel. And Pedro Jimenez, as you know, is that thick, sweet, toffee, cocoa, rich flavor that will just really tee off any meal, anywhere. I don't know a single person that drinks Pedro Jimenez that doesn't say that the Pedro Jimenez coming out of William & Humbert is some of the best on the planet. And so this rum takes advantage of those amazing casks. Next slide. Takes advantage of the next slide of the Donguito, award-winning Donguito Pedro Jimenez. And if you know Pedro Jimenez, again, it's a great, rich product that you'd have at the end. Yep, strong caramel, yes. Rich flavors. It coats your glass. I mean, you can see on the picture here, you can see a little bit of the Donguito on the glass there because just it sits and coats in glass. Again, great with savory products like cheese as such. But again, a lot of similar characteristics to heavy old rum. So Pedro Jimenez is very popular with, especially in some of the modern day rums that we're seeing now, where they take advantage and use those casks, because those casks have sucked in over these years all that toffee and caramel and cocoa and chocolatey type flavors from the sherry into the pores of the wood, and then that's extracted by the alcohol from the rum, the 5-year-old rum from Guyana, from Barbados, to take those natural flavors of the sherry to marry into the Dos Maderas. Next slide. So this is the new bottle, which fortunately I have a bottle in London. Thank you. I think I've got the only one in London. Most of the old bottles I still think are classic bottles, but as companies do, companies change over the course of time. They want to get a new elegant bottle to bring in the new world, 2020. No, we'll forget 2020, 2021. So this is the new bottle. I think that you might be winning. Might be winning a couple of these in the quiz later. Hopefully Frank and Leo don't enter. In fact, if they do enter, you'll still win, because I don't think they'll get their questions right anyway. So this is the new 5+5. And as we said before, you got 5-year Caribbean rum from Guyana, Barbados. 3 years, a little bit more in the drier barrels of the Cortados, and then 2 more years, which makes 5+5, 2 more years in the Pedro Jimenez. So we're actually using 3 barrels, technically. So they call it 2 woods, but maybe you should call it 3 woods as such. Maybe that might be the new company name. We'll find out. They have make a new name and call it Tres Maderas as such, because it's 3 barrels, technically. But yeah, this is a new elegant looking thick bottle. Again, one of those rums that you use in various different types of occasions, whether you're serving it neat on the rocks, whether you're doing it with a twist of orange, whether you do it on a cocktail as well, which is another one of my favorite ways. Probably my principal way of drinking Dos Maderas is through cocktails, because I love using great base products to create amazing tasting flavors and drinks to really tantalize my customers and give them a really good rum experience. And of course, the conversation piece, when you bring in the old world to the new world, you're bringing the Caribbean to Spain for the marry of this particular rum. Next slide. So just to summarize, again, this slide is available for you to see. You can see the makeup of it: Guyana, Barbados, 5 years old rum, to Spain, 3 years in the Cortado cask, the Palo Cortado cask, which are 20 years, and then another 2 more years in the Pedro Jimenez cask to finish it off and give it its name, the 5+5. And even I can work that out with my limited mathematics skills. That is a 10-year-old rum. But again, one of the things I love, the fact that Dos Maderas don't do, they don't say it's a 10-year-old. They could do if they wanted to. There are a lot of brands out there that have what I call fake age statements. And Dos Maderas is definitely one that is not fake. It is 5 + 2 + 3, 3 processes to bottle and create this product for you. Next slide. And this is the family range. Again, you can only get one of them. So let's flip on to the next slide. But we put it in there just so you can drink a lot of 5+5, and then maybe what's called Liquor PH can just do a little deal and maybe bring selection in, and maybe the Luxus. Yeah, we'll negotiate. That's when you start talking about 10-year-old Caribbean rums going through the system, or even the 5+5 being aged further inside some more casks to get to 10 years old. But we'll save that for the next tasting another time. So this is one of my favorite cocktails I love to make. If I was there with you, I would have made this. I call it the double wood Manhattan. Double wood being the two types of wood that is used. Dos Maderas, of course, double wood, and a Manhattan, as in Manhattan style, gone with the simplistic Manhattan style. So it's basically the rum, sweet vermouth, bitters, and a twist of orange peel. So I use the Dos Maderas PX, or 5+5, 50 mils of sweet vermouth, because I've got a sweet tooth, and it should be a sweeter style of a cocktail. 3 dashes of chocolate bitters, because I get that chocolate note from the sherry. From the award-winning Don Guido sherry, and then a twist of orange to bring out those orange notes that you get from especially the Guyanese and the Barbados rums, the Caribbean rums. They have that orange pure note that works so well with rum. So for me, perfect. Serve maybe with some chocolate shavings, or maybe just maybe, in fact, if you really want to get fancy, you get some melted chocolate. You dip a cherry inside there, then stick that inside the freezer and serve that. So you got your cherry coated with like coated with chocolate, but chocolate's cold, so it doesn't melt inside the glass. And then you put it on the side or stick that inside there. And, whoa, amazing, absolutely amazing, delicious. Okay, next slide. So yes, so Dos Maderas rums, perfect for drinking neat, on ice, in a cocktail, but definitely with friends, because that's how rum should be drunk. I don't drink rum at home, very rarely, unless I'm tasting for events and things like this, but I don't drink rum at home. Rum tastes better with friends. Although you guys, well, you're on friends now anyway. You can drink at home if you're online. If you're on a Zoom call like we are now, then yeah, you can drink rum. Don't drink rum by yourself, drink it with friends, because that's what tastes amazing. Final slide, I think, final slide. And there we have it, that's me. Just in case you wanna know what's the best rum in the world, click. There's 3, the one in my glass, click. The next one, click, and a free one. they're the best rums in the world, because rum is more than a spirit, it's actually a lifestyle. So guys, thank you again for taking the time to listen to me rattle on about Dos Maderas. I wish I had one in front of me now so I could drink, but some of it I have to catch a plane in about an hour and a half. I've still got a bit of time to answer any questions here. As such, but yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you for again. And if you were throwing things at the screen at me, sorry, I apologize. It happens. Throw tomatoes at the screen, say get off. As such. But back over to Frank and Leo.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for doing that. You were a trooper for going through that pretty quick. That was no, it was good, but it was like you knew it. It was boom, boom, boom. That was great. Let me actually, so I can see other people. I will unpin you, remove spotlight. All right, so let me gallery view. All right, guys, so this is your time to speak up. If you have any questions for Ian, this is the time. I mean, this guy is so busy. If you want to be friends with him, you have to go to his Facebook page and like it. And then that's when, because that's how I was able to talk to Ian before when I had a couple questions. So yeah.
You catch me on Instagram as well.
Oh, the gram. You gotta love the gram.
That's gram.
Let's see. There was a couple questions that were asked me privately. Let me see.
Oh, okay.
One, I'm not sure if this could be answered, but someone was referring to, because I guess there's only so many distilleries in Guyana.
Yes, so, there's only one distillery in Guyana.
So was it the same distillery that produces El Dorado, Demerara?
Correct, El Dorado, yeah. So what it is there's one distillery in Guyana, it's called the DDL, Demerara Distillers Limited, or the Diamond Distillery. And if anyone's ever watched the film The Highlander, I see Frank's a Highlander fan. With a Highlander, to take the powers of another Highlander, you have to kill them and you take their power. This is pretty much what DDL have done. They have 9 different stills on their estate. And each of those stills are from different distilleries that have either closed down or they closed down. So they have like the wooden still, double wooden still from the Port Morant distillery, or they have a still from the Enmore distillery. So, and they have these stills, so they can make different styles of rums on one spot. Because of all these distilleries that have closed down, they're taking their power, taking their best stills. So any rum that comes from Guyana is from that one distillery, which is a shame there's only one now, because 200 years ago, there would have been at least 150 distilleries.
Oh, all right. So another
Ian,
question.
can I pipe in?
You know what? Let me just get these questions first because they were asked a while ago. Then
Okay.
All right. Go.
open it up. All right, Raj. Thanks, buddy. All right. What makes a rum distinct, aside, of course, from the base, which is sugarcane versus barley or malt? Some great rums, when taken neat, almost taste like whiskey.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the main thing that makes the rum, well, there's lots of elements. The raw material, it may be molasses, it may be fresh sugarcane juice, it may be syrup. But to be a rum, you have to be made from a byproduct of sugarcane. Secondly, it's then how it's fermented, the length of time. Long fermentations give a lot of big flavors. Short fermentations are much more lighter. What you ferment with. Some will use cultivated yeast that they've created for themselves, again, creates different types of flavors. Some will use the leftovers of previous distillates, or what we call muck, like dunder, to create really big, heavy, funky flavors. Some will just use natural yeast from the air, just leave the fresh sugarcane juice just to ferment and take in bacteria from the natural air. So again, that's going to create flavor. And then how you concentrate those flavors through distillation, what type of still, pot still, column still, multi-column still, single column still, double twin column. How long are you distilling for? So the distillation will create different types of flavors. And then finally, how are you going to store it or age it? Are you going to age it in once-used bourbon casks? Are you going to age it in once-used cognac casks? Are you going to age it in sherry casks? Are you going to do a combination of both? So there's lots of different factors when we're making rums. Each company, each brand has its own techniques. Just because you see the word sherry on a rum bottle, it doesn't mean each rum finished with sherry or aged in sherry cask is going to be the same, because there are different types of sherries, different types of barrels. It might be wet cask, dry cask, so lots of different factors that will change and create rums.
All right. And one more question that was asked privately. Is there any added sugar or molasses in this? Because the sweetness is quite prominent.
Okay, right. So there's no added molasses to this rum, because not many rum companies I know add molasses back to rums. Some will add sugars like aged sugars. Some will just add sugar. Now, the sugar or the sweetness from this rum is coming from the Pedro Jimenez sherry. That's why if you tried the 5+5, it is quite dry, because that's a dry sherry, where the Pedro Jimenez has a lot of sugar inside there. And naturally, if that's inside the barrel, inside the wood, once you put a high ABV alcohol inside that, that's going to draw that sweet sherry from the barrel, from inside the wood, into the actual rum. So yes, there is sweetener. There is a sweetener inside there coming from the award-winning Pedro Jimenez sherry inside there. That Pedro Jimenez sherry that we saw, the 20-year-old that we saw on one of the earlier slides. So yes, there is sugar in there, but the sugars are different types of sugars that rum companies will use. So the sugar from this is from the Pedro Jimenez sherry that's inside the cask.
All right, so I'm going to open the floor. I think Raj wanted to speak up real quick. Raj, did you want to say something, buddy?
Ian, can you talk a little bit about rum agricole and Claren? I'm seeing a lot of that now.
Okay, yeah, so rum agricole, depending on where it's made, as such, I mean, my philosophy is, if it's called rum agricole, it should be made in the countries that have fought to get agricole as a classification for their style of rum. And that's the French colonies, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Reunion Island, French Guyana, places like that. And when we say rum agricole, these are sugarcane distillates. They're rums made from fresh sugarcane juice that have gone through certain styles of procedures to make their rum according to the laws of their particular land or their particular island or their particular country. So a rum agricole would be from those French colonies. Now, what we're seeing is a lot of countries making rum from fresh sugarcane juice and possibly trying to use the name agricole, even though the name agricole was created and reserved for those French colonies. In fact, there's only one other country in Europe that's allowed to use the word agricole legally on the label, and that's rums from Madeira, part of Portugal. So if you see the word rum agricole in Europe, it's either from the French colonies or it's from Madeira. They're the only two areas allowed to agricole. All other rums should be called cane juice rums, or fresh sugar cane juice rums, as opposed to agricole. So that's what agricole rums are: fresh sugar cane juice rums made in the French colonies in different ways. They could be column still, they could be pot still, but they're rum agricoles. Claron or Clarin, my French is not that good, is a rum or a spirit made in Haiti, the island of Haiti. Very characteristic of the style of spirits they drink there. It's all natural. So they crush the sugarcane juice, and then they're one of the places that actually just have the sugarcane juice in a big vat container, and they let it ferment naturally. No water is added like agricole rums or like molasses rums. They just let the bugs, the flies, all the animals get in there, and they ferment and create all those funky flavors. That might happen after about a week. It might happen after 2 weeks. But once it's ready to be distilled, they then distill that in their small little tiny pot stills, and that is the spirit of Haiti. And if you like spirits like mezcal, this is what I call like the mezcal of rum, Clarin, because it's all natural, funky, it's old school style of making rum, but it's definitely a local Haitian spirit.
So I know we're talking about Dos Maderas, but someone had a question for you. And when will or how can we get your new rum, your African rum, maybe available in the Philippines someday?
Oh, I have to speak to an importer. I don't know. Do you know any importers that are looking for a new rum?
I think I may know a few different companies, Ian.
Okay, cool. There asks a question. Soon.
All right. Any more questions before we get the quiz started, guys? And so we can. I know, Ian, you got to wait for these quizzes. They'll have a good time, man. Let me tell you.
I know. It's I've still got. Let me see. See, this is how tight this is. You see, I'm packed and everything like this. I have a flight in like an hour and a half, but I'm only 30 minutes away from the airport, and it's only hand luggage, so I can time it. So I've still got like another 9-10 minutes. That's cool.
All right. Actually, before we start the quiz, Leonard, let's because we're kind of a big group here, so we have to. Let's do, if everyone can turn on their cameras, raise a glass. You know, do a class shot, and I'll do a couple of those. So just keep them up. Okay, everyone, come on, turn on your cameras. Do a print screen. Okay, come on, let's see a few more.
Hey, wait a minute, just checking before you take this photo. Jefferson Chua, is he old enough? He looks like he's under 18.
Jeff. Yes.
It's the Asian thing, Ian.
Well, I know that. My great grandmother was half Chinese, so I've got a bit of Asian in me. It keeps me young. So that's the 16th part of me that keeps me young.
Wow. All right, let me see. I'll do one print screen because we have to do two. So just guys, be patient. Okay, gotta do one here. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Computers are just too complicated nowadays.
Just get your phone out and take a photo of it there.
Yeah, true.
Quick before Raphael starts wrestling you. Quick.
I'll take them out. All right, one more. Print screen.